Hello, everybody. My name is Maurice Button. I'm the CEO of City and Financial Global, and I'd like to welcome you to the latest in our series of speaker interviews. A great pleasure to have with me today Janine Hirt, who's CEO of Innovate Finance. And Janine is going to be speaking at our Payments Regulation and Innovation Summit on the 25th of January in London. Welcome, Janine.
Hi, Maurice. Thank you so much for having me, and really looking forward to the summit as well.
Excellent. Let's turn to the first question, if we may. Innovate Finance recently commented on the PSR's report on APP fraud, calling for urgent action to hold companies like Meta accountable for the 60% of online fraud taking place on their platform. What do you think the government or regulators need to do to deal with the situation?
Absolutely. It's an issue that's really critical to the fintech sector. So if you take this into context, we know that around 40% of all crime in the UK is fraud, but only 1% of police resourcing is committed to dealing with that fraud. So we really need to work on bringing industry together with regulators and government to try and find some of these solutions. We know that around 70% of fraud is originating from online social media platforms like Meta. And we welcome efforts from the likes of Google, whereby any company advertising financial services on their search engine must actually be authorized by the FCA. This has reduced the aggregated reports rate to nearly zero, and we see Google's efforts as having been and should be standard that the rest of the tech sector has to meet. We very much encourage government to make this the norm, and we also, again, want to make sure that we are having a conversation about how you hold some of the large social media platforms accountable for this fraud at the source.
Yeah, I mean, it's an astonishing situation. I hadn't heard those statistics before. And this leads on nicely into my next question, really. Obviously, I think our viewers will have seen that Joe Garner published his Future of Payments review a few days ago, and he called for a national payments vision and strategy with the primary aim of simplifying the payments process over time and providing a more cohesive approach. Do you think there is a need to simplify the payments landscape?
Absolutely. And I must say, we were really supportive of the recommendations in Joe Garner's review. Having this national payments vision, we feel is absolutely critical, not only to ensuring that we have a world-leading payment sector, but for ensuring the safety and security of the users and the consumers as well. So I think having that review, bringing everyone together to say, this is what we need to do, this is how we need to move forward and progress, is very much critical to the UK's leadership in financial services overall.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, looking at the role of fintech startups in the UK, some 40% of all fintech startups are in the payments sector. What do you think this says about the way the payments ecosystem is changing and developing?
Yeah. I think we're already seeing that payments is a prime example of where technology and fintechs have played a key role in terms of really democratizing financial services. So decreasing costs, increasing efficiency. Payments has been a core example of where we've seen that transformation and that real reformation as well. So ensuring that we're continuing that momentum, ensuring that we're offering opportunities for fintechs and for new technologies to play a core role as we progress is very critical.
And do you think that, just a supplementary question, if I may, do you think that following the Khalifa review and various other reviews over the last several years, do you think we've created the right environment for these fintechs to flourish?
I mean, that is a great question, and it's a large question as well.
Yeah.
I think, there's a couple components to look at. So the UK has historically always been a leader in fintech when you look at investment, and the last few years have proven that correct. So even in 2022, which was a pretty difficult economic year, I would argue, we still had more than $12.5 billion US invested into UK fintech. That is second in the world to anywhere but the United States, and it is ahead of the next 10 European countries combined. So we really are, and the year before that, it was all of Europe combined that we were actually ahead of. So we very much are a global leader. I think we need to make sure we continue the momentum. So part of that is around ensuring we have access and continue to have access to great skills, both through a domestic pipeline and through access to international talent. We also need to do a little bit more on the growth capital piece. And so the Mansion House Compact that came out earlier in this year, which we actually worked closely with the Lord Mayor and the City of London on, is a great step forward to really plugging that growth capital gap and having those pension firms investing into these great growth companies as well.
So,
and the regulation is really core, which I know we've touched on already, but one of the reasons we've always been a leader here in the UK is because we have had historically such a proactive regulator in the example of the FCA, the sandboxes, etc. We need to make sure with new technology that we're continuing at pace to address and both allow innovation to thrive while also protecting the consumer. It's really important we find that balance.
So doing well, but no scope for complacency at all.
Yes.
And how do you think the move from open banking to open finance can influence the future direction of payment systems to promote competition and financial inclusion, which of course is very important?
Absolutely. So we are actually calling for a roadmap for the next 5 years to ensure that we are able to move through from open banking through to open finance, and ultimately, actually on a long-term basis, ensuring that we are an open data economy and one of the world's first smart data economies too. So that would be the ultimate ideal. And we are calling that through our FinTech manifesto. I think in terms of the inclusion, it's really striking to see how open banking is making a difference in terms of underrepresented segments of the population as well. We did a report earlier this year with EY that looked specifically at the cost of living and the role that FinTech was playing in terms of supporting individuals and SMEs through this period. And open banking plays a key role within that, and open banking providers play a key role within that. On the inclusion piece, I would also add that we released a report a few weeks ago on the impact of FinTech. And we found that 97% of UK fintechs are having a positive impact on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
Wow.
So it's really positive. We know that a quarter are directly addressing inequality, so offering broader access to more products, and more than a third are solidifying social justice institutions and increasing peace. So overall, really positive impact that the sector is having, not only on financial services, but on society more broadly.
Yeah, well, that's very, very good to hear. We're a little pressed for time, so our final question. In their cross-authority roadmap on innovation and payments, published by the Bank of England, the FCA, and the PRA earlier this month, it was suggested that stable coins may well be used for day-to-day transactions, both by consumers and business in the future. How do you think this development, and maybe more broadly, electronic money, is likely to affect the payment system in the future?
Yeah, Maurice, it's a great question. And we believe that actually the development of a stable coin and going broader CBDC, digital currency, is critical both to the UK's leadership in financial services, but also towards driving that, addressing inequality and making sure we're bringing everyone into the financial services space. So we are big proponents of that moving forward and progressing at pace as well.
Yeah, well, it's an exciting time for the industry, and clearly moving forward so quickly and rapidly developing. We've run out of time, but we'll be looking at all of these issues in much more depth at the conference, which is coming up on the 25th of January. That's the Payments Regulation and Innovation Summit. More details are available on our website, so we very much hope our viewers will be able to attend in person. Just remains for me to say thank you very much for joining us, Janine, and sharing those views with us.
Thank you so much, Maurice.